Well, I must share with you one experience that I've had, and that will tell you what this budget is all about. On one policy decision once, many of us in the cabinet felt that we should postpone that decision for political considerations. And the Honorable
demonetization
on some other issue. And the Honorable Prime Minister had very categorically directed that no, this government will take decisions in national interests and public interests. No decision will be will be benchmarked to politics or elections or timing. And I must say the Honorable Finance Minister in all the 3 years has been very consistent. He has ensured macroeconomic stability. He has ensured that fiscal prudence is respected, while at the same time making sure that budgets are focused towards the poor, towards the marginalized sections of society, towards farmers, women, youth, the sections of society that really deserve it the most. Just as Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay had articulated, the first right on the nation's resources are of the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. I think Finance Minister Mr. Jaitley has ensured that the poorest of the poor gain the most, while the middle class, the farmers, everybody stands to benefit. And almost nobody is stressed with any additional taxes. So much is going to be spent for rural development, for agricultural sector, for infrastructure creation, almost universally. This is a growth-oriented budget. This can kickstart job generation. This can kickstart ideation, new ideas, Startup India, Stand Up India. I think truly a phenomenal effort.
You know, you've talked about several things, and let me talk about the capital expenditure that you just touched upon. 24% is the increase that the finance minister has allocated, roads, highways, infrastructure, so on and so forth. Do you believe, though, that that is going to now be able to draw in private investment, because that continues to be off the table?
Well, I think the private investment was suffering from the lag effect of several years of policy paralysis, indecisiveness, lots of corruption scandals coming out, and lack of demand. When we inherited government in 2014, you'll recall what kind of a state projects were in the country. Almost every sector projects were stressed or stalled. The banking system was in a bad shape.
But there hasn't been any significant improvement on those parameters even today, sir.
Every parameter. Now, take for example the road sector. In the road sector, there were so many projects that were stalled, which have been sorted out and restarted. In the power sector, we had so many projects which are at different stages of development. In the first 2 years, we were able to commission 45,000 megawatts of projects. All of them were already running late, which we were able to complete by sorting out the environmental, financial, land issues. So in some sense, this is a process that has a time of its own.
Okay.
It's not something that can be done with a magic wand.
But do you believe we're at that point now, where we will see a pickup as far as private investment is concerned?
We will, because ultimately private investment is looking for opportunity where they will make money, where there is demand. And as more and more of the current demand is getting fulfilled or is taking care of the current capacities, and we see industrial growth coming in, I think companies will start looking at the next 3 or 4 years ahead and start preparing their investment.
You know, one of the big themes in this budget has been the focus on public sector enterprises, the possibility of mega mergers. The finance minister spoke specifically about the oil and gas sector, but he said it's not restricted only to the oil and gas sector. You look after 3 different ministries, Mr. Goyal. Are we looking at any kind of restructuring, consolidation across some of the ministries that you operate in?
Well, we are always looking at ideas to make things better. For example, take a simple case like of bioethanol. Now, bioethanol is a business where my ministry does the policy making and the petroleum minister's ministry does the consumption. Now, over the years, last 2 years experience, we find that this is not the best way to do it. So we have both requested the department which looks after the allocation of business to consider moving the entire thing to the petroleum ministry. They are the consuming ministry. Can make policies tailored
from an operational point of view. I was talking about corporate entities within your ministry, within, for instance, you know, in the power sector, for instance. Is there a need for consolidation to create a larger...
At one point of time, when I had just become a minister, very earlier on, in fact, this same venue, in the International Habitat Center where we are today, in one of my review meetings of the Hydel projects, I had just floated the idea that why don't we consider merging some of these companies and make a larger Hydel behemoth. I remember at that time I'd put a committee in place also to study all of them. They came up with certain recommendations. But we had certain complications that some projects were joint ventures with certain states.
Okay.
One with Jammu Kashmir, one with Uttar Pradesh. So we'll have to resolve some of these issues, but I'm open to the idea.
You're open to the idea?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me now talk to you about a couple of ideas that the budget has not really taken forward, but the finance minister acknowledging that it's on the table. The bad bank. The chief economic advisor has spoken about a public asset rehabilitation agency. The Niti Aayog is pushing for this. The FM says it's an idea on the table. How soon can we see this take off? Because there is now a clear acknowledgement from the government that the solutions to address the NPA problem have not been fruitful so far.
Well, first of all, the solutions as they stand, at least we've been able to honestly assess what the situation is. I would like to mention to you that all of these loans which are under stress or getting bad are loans that were sanctioned at a point of time much before this government came in.
That's a different story, sir.
These are an inherited legacy. Only thing is, instead of camouflaging that, as has been done for years and decades before this government came in, which you are very well aware of, which your viewers, I'm sure, are well aware of, this government bit the bullet, was willing to take the bull by the horns. We made the banks recognize what is good, what is bad, what is ugly. We forced promoters to sell their assets and pay back to the banks.
Is that process going to continue, sir? The sale of stressed assets? Because there is a fear that given what we've seen happen in the IDBI Bank Kingfisher matter, that this business of banks, considering even the possibility of taking a haircut to get rid of stressed assets, will perhaps be
I don't think so. Please understand that honest bankers, honest financial sector participants have nothing to fear. The question of one particular case being under investigation does not deter the banking sector as a whole. It's about your integrity and your confidence in your integrity. So I personally don't see any problem in the banking sector. We have some very good bankers, very competent bankers in the system, and I'm sure they have the confidence about their own integrity and can take bold decisions. The process of bank consolidation, the process of restructuring of bad loans, the process of wherever it needs, a decision needs to be taken, has to be taken, is well underway. We now also have an oversight committee, which will see the decisions taken by the bankers and provide protection to them.
But a bad bank likely in this financial year?
I would think so. It's a good idea. I personally am for it. And I do believe it will give a lot of comfort to the bankers who will be out of one major management issue and will be able to lend in a much more organized manner.
The way to capitalize the bad banks, the chief economic advisor's idea is use the excess capital from the Reserve Bank of India, and that could perhaps be the way to capitalize this bad bank or this public asset rehabilitation agency. Is that something that's been considered? Will that be an idea acceptable?
You must respect that the chief economic advisor's role is one to come up with new and innovative ideas. We had Mr. Bill Gates, before that we had Mr. Thurman from Singapore. Both spoke about transformation of India, resting on new ideas. And ideation is something this government welcomes. So I think Mr. Arvind Subramaniam has thrown out of his hat a few new ideas. We respect him, and we believe all of these ideas will be taken up for consideration and the best way forward in consultation. After all, Reserve Bank is an autonomous body, and we'll consult with them and come up with a better solution.
So I'll finish off with the Reserve Bank in just a bit before I move on to another issue. So we've got the credit policy around the corner. What is the expectation now that the government has? The finance minister, during the course of the speech, kept talking about a reduction in interest rates, and how that is going to drive credit offtake.
That's prerogative of the Monetary
What's the expectation?
Policy Committee.
What would you like to see?
But we would like the Reserve Bank Policy Committee to recognize the fact that this is one government which has not strayed from fiscal prudence. We have kept inflation under reins. It's under 4% CPI, under 3% WPI. We've ensured the fiscal consolidation path. 3.5% in a very difficult year has been maintained, will be maintained. 3.2% next year and then 3% the year after. Current account deficit is down to a record 0.3%. Revenue deficit, which is a very critical figure, down to 1.9% next. I mean, you can see the track record of this government. You can see the sincerity of effort and purpose in every action of this government, the thrust it's giving to growth. And I think when you balance all these fiscal parameters with the need for growth, I'm sure the Monetary Policy Committee will take the right decision.
Okay, you're saying the Monetary Policy Committee must take cognizance of all the actions that the government has delivered, at least as far as the fiscal side is concerned. Let me then ask you, sir, about some of the other ideas that are being talked about at this point in time. The need for a universal basic income scheme. Once again, the government has not taken it forward in the budget. It cannot be an additional scheme. It will have to take the government to actually wipe the subsidy slate clean and then introduce the universal basic income scheme. Do you have the political appetite to take that forward?
My God, that's one question you can't ask of a government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. If any government has political appetite to reform, transform and serve the poor of India, it is this government of Prime Minister Modi.
So
and I think there is more criticism of his ability to take bold decisions.
Do you think that could be a budget idea for the next year?
But you must bear in mind that the economic survey just came yesterday. As I said, the economic survey and the CA is expected to float new ideas. The Niti Aayog is expected to come up with innovation and innovative thoughts. We respect these ideas. We'll take it on board. We'll throw it for larger public debate. Maybe we'll have some debates on your channel on this subject.
We're happy to have them,
We'll
sir.
have some ideas coming from the people at large. But I would only request you to correct your phraseology.
Okay.
It's not as if you're going to wipe the slate clean or something.
I'm just saying that you will need to dispense off with certain schemes.
The idea is of trusting the people of India to choose how to spend wisely.
Okay.
Instead of small pockets of subsidies in different pockets giving it to people, the idea that he has floated is that we combine all of that. Help the people get larger chunks of money because it also eliminates the chances of leakages and corruption. The famous Rajiv Gandhi quote of 84 paisa is stolen out of every rupee he sends out of Delhi. Fortunately, the government led by Mr. Modi has been able to bring down a lot of that corruption and leakage through direct benefit transfer, through Manrega funds being geotagged to create physical assets and put in public domain. That we've been able to significantly bring down leakages and waste in the system and corruption in the system. This is also an idea which we'll address in the days to come.
Let me end then by asking you, Mr. Goyal, I think the one disappointment, at least coming in from your home turf, sir, of Mumbai, is that the expectation of a cut as far as corporate taxes has not been given into by the government.
And this was,
but sir, this was part of your roadmap, and there has been no cut.
We have, in fact, we had said
that's only for companies with a turnover of 50 crores. Sir.
So since when did 96% become only and 4% become the universe? I think, ma'am, you must appreciate that what the Honorable Finance Minister had promised was that he will do away with exemptions and gradually bring down the rate to 25% for businesses.
Yes.
Now, when we looked at the details and found that 96% of taxpayers or the limited companies which pay tax are in the bracket with a turnover of up to 50 crores. And when we look at their taxes, we find that they're already paying 30%, whereas the larger companies who enjoy a lot of the exemptions and other benefits, when you see their effective tax, they're already at 25%. So the idea was that we remove those exemptions and bring them down to 25. These exemptions will take 7 to 8 years, as he articulated today, to phase out, and gradually those rates will come down. But these smaller taxpayers with turnover of up to 50 crores, I'm sure they will also be eligible. So we'll keep monitoring as his exemption falls by the wayside and their effective tax rate keeps increasing. We'll ensure that that remains at or below 25%.
Mr. Goyal, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, sir, as always.
Thank you. Just one small point.
Yes.
Before I go, I think this big attack that this government has taken against corruption and black money and a lot of steps, particularly on political party funding, for instance, taken in this budget, the huge measures to promote the digital economy, to bring down the informal sector which doesn't pay taxes, the huge effort being made to reach out to the middle class through affordable housing, to the poor of India through larger allocation of funds for rural development, to the agriculture and allied sectors. I think you will find in this budget a holistic approach where every section of society and every section of job creation or growth has gained from the budget. Transformation and reform is the buzzword, and yet there's no stress on anybody for larger taxes.